Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. If you are new to the channel on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe as always. And if you're new to the Spotify or Apple podcast, make sure to leave us a review. Much love as always. Really appreciate it. And today we're taking a look at the schedule release. The NFL makes us wait. They make us wait until 8 p.m. to get the official release. But of course, it gets leaked a lot earlier. And we have the schedule here. And we're really excited to share it with you guys. And as you're going to hear, as you know, we go through the schedule, it is extremely easy. Anthony just sent me a graph showing that the Giants have the easiest schedule in the entire league based on the 2021 win totals of the teams that they're facing. So the Eagles are in second place and the Colts are in third. The NFC East generally is above average when it comes to the ease of the schedule. So Giants definitely have an opportunity to win some games this year. I kind of may have a semi-hot take. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but I'll let you hear that in a couple of minutes before we dive into the schedule. My friend, how you doing?
Doing all right. And yeah, taking a look at the schedule, it's way easier than anticipated, right? The Giants schedule is ranked number one in ease. So maybe the Giants can surprise some people. I don't know. Maybe we should not get too far ahead of ourselves. But I will say this, the Giants have some really interesting matchups on the schedule. They've got a Thanksgiving matchup, which I'm really excited for. They've got a Christmas Day matchup. So the holidays, they're going to be football centric. We're going to have to do some recordings on those days. So that might be a little interesting. But of course, no matter what, holidays, not holidays, Fireside Giants has you covered. And I'm excited to see the Giants play while I'm eating some good turkey. That's going to be a fun time.
Absolutely. I could not be happier. And I want to go through, okay, so the way I want to do this is I want to go through each individual game and you'll give me a win or a loss based on the matchup. So it's definitely premature, but I think it's interesting. And I'd love for you guys in the comment section below on YouTube to also throw in your picks for the schedule. But right off the bat, the Giants start with a pretty difficult game, 4:25 p.m., September 11th. Shout out to those who have fallen. And it'll definitely be a pretty emotional day, as it usually is. But I will say this, Tennessee Titans, that is a tough matchup. I know they traded A.J. Brown. But hear me out. They got Treylon Burks, and underrated, they got Robert Woods, too. He's coming off the ACL tear, but Robert Woods is no joke, right? Derrick Henry, Robert Woods, and Treylon Burks. That's no joke. That's not an easy team. And, Ryan Tannehill's not the best player in the world, not the best quarterback, but they also have a very, very, very strong defense. So Giants starting off week one, hell of a challenge. I really want to see Daniel Jones come out firing and just let him loose. Let him freaking play his game. Let him throw the football, take risks. This is his time to show us what he's got. No more robot DJ, Jason Garrett holding him by the puppet strings. Let him go. This is an opportunity for him to show us what he's got, Anthony. But Tennessee Titans, I think they lose this game, but I think they're competitive at the very least. What are you thinking about week one?
Yeah, I'm going to have to give the Giants an L on this one. I think the Tennessee Titans are a really solid football team. Defensively, offensively, I think they're well built on both sides of the ball. They've got a great coaching staff, and I expect them to come out in week one, probably secure a W over the Giants. The Giants have made a lot of improvements this offseason, but do I expect them to go toe-to-toe with playoff teams and get some wins? Very rarely, if that even happens. So I think starting out the season in week one, I'm sure Brian Dable will have the team ready and he'll, they'll put together a decent enough performance, but won't be enough for the win in my eyes. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans in week one.
Yeah, me too, unfortunately. We're not just there. We're not there just yet, but we're getting there, hopefully. We got to make some real progress first. But before I move on to week two, I'll give you my little semi-hot take. And my semi-hot take is this. I've kind of been debating this on social media with people. Definitely had some interesting conversations. Some good arguments were brought up. But I kind of feel like if the Giants had a tougher schedule, it would have benefited them specifically for this season. And the reason why I think a tougher schedule would have benefited them for this season is two reasons. One, you get to see if Daniel Jones can really compete against better quality teams. Because look, if I expect Daniel Jones to kick ass against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I expect him to beat the Lions. I expect him to play good football against lesser teams. But how good is Daniel Jones against better teams? Can he go to Green Bay like Eli Manning did in the NFC Championship and win? Can he go to New England and win? Can he go to Cincinnati and win? Can he go to Baltimore and win? Like this is where I kind of want to see Daniel Jones succeed. Now, the Giants do have some tough matchups in this schedule. They do have the Packers and Ravens that we'll get to, and Dallas and Philly, obviously, always tough matchups. But I think that a tougher schedule would have allowed the Giants to really see what Daniel Jones could be. And if he doesn't play well, they end up with a top pick anyway because the schedule is tough. They're probably going to lose those games if Daniel Jones doesn't play well. But if he does play well and they win some of those games, then you have a good foundation to build off of. You say, okay, he looked good against these teams. He showed us some good qualities. Now we can go into the future and hopefully develop him further, knowing that he is capable of playing well against better quality squads. So my take it really here is that I kind of feel like a better, like a tougher schedule would have benefited Daniel Jones a little bit more, because when it comes to the playoffs, beating Jacksonville and playing well against Jacksonville does not matter. You want to see him beating the Buffalo Bills of the world and like the teams I mentioned. So I kind of think that they would have had a better idea of what he's capable of. This is his 4th season. It's now or never. If he plays average against bad teams, average teams, that's not enough, in my opinion, to justify an extension. So what do you think about that idea?
So I think the part of this where we're going to disagree is you mentioned like you expect to see Daniel Jones beat up on the Jaguars. I personally don't have that expectation for him. My expectations for
There's that
Daniel
too.
Jones are not the highest. So I don't really think that for Daniel Jones, I think I could see the argument on a different perspective, right? Because you're mentioning how it would be better for Daniel Jones to face better teams. I mean, might be better for the Giants to evaluate him against the best of the best competition. But
That's what I'm
really, you take a
thinking.
look at what he's done the past 2 years, and you take a look at the teams that he's faced, the best teams and the worst teams, he's had really bad performances no matter who he was facing. I think the main part of Daniel Jones this season that we need to evaluate is how he works and operates and how well he plays in Brian Daboll's offense. It's a much better offensive scheme, and honestly, he also has a much better offensive line in front of him this year, and he has better playmakers. So, yeah, maybe you should expect to see him beat up on the bad teams, but maybe you should see him a little more competitive versus the competitive teams as well. So I don't know. It can kind of go hand in hand. But personally, my expectations for Daniel Jones are not the highest considering what he's done the last 2 years. Again, he has a better situation around him right now. But the other part of the argument that you could probably make here is that I would rather see the Giants face harder teams this year because I don't think they're ready to compete just yet. And I might want a higher draft pick this year because I think next year they might be ready to compete. The way that the Giants are building, it's a slow build. It's a rebuild. Joe Shane is doing it the right way. He's not throwing a ton of money. I mean, granted, the Giants didn't have a ton of money in the first place, but he's not trying to throw around a lot of money and build this team with stars all over the place and win now. He's very carefully trying to win later. He's trying to build this team with a strong foundation. The offensive line has been rebuilt to a much better place. The defensive line with Kayvon Thibodeau, at the edge rusher position, young players in the secondary, they cut pretty much all the veterans that were tying up with a lot of money. So for me personally, if you're going to make that argument, I would say I want this year's schedule to be harder so that next year's schedule can be easier when the Giants are a little bit better positioned to win some football games.
Okay, I mean, that's interesting. I didn't really think of it that way. I more or less was thinking of it like this: Daniel Jones, if he plays average this year, you move on, right? Like you cannot justify extending him if he plays average football, because Tyrod Taylor can play average football at $5 million instead of $30 million. Like that's an argument to make.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm personally at this point where I might move on from Daniel Jones regardless, just because even if he has a good season this year, you can't guarantee that he's going to have a good season the following year, considering his last 2 years were pretty bad. So you can't really
he has to
guarantee that.
dominate.
He would have to dominate in order to be like worthy of an extension. I mean, maybe you can franchise tag him if he has a good year, but even at the end of the day, when you take a look at that, if you extend him for being good or you franchise tag him or whatever, you have no guarantee that he's going to continue to be good because he's only had one good season out of 4. And so are you really going to bank on that? Or would you rather just reset the rookie quarterback window with a new rookie quarterback for much cheaper than that franchise tag and move forward with that? Or do you want to continue to try and make Daniel Jones work, and there's no guarantee that he will? So I think it's kind of like, it's more of a question for next offseason, but it's something to keep in mind as we enter the season.
Yeah, no, totally. And look, if this is the only year that we have to evaluate Daniel Jones, he's got to show us his best. And ultimately, if he does, then that's great. That kind of makes the decision even tougher for us. But if he doesn't, the decision's easy. You move on and you just walk into the sunset with Tyrod Taylor and a rookie under tow. So like that's kind of the argument. Like I'm really having a tough time figuring out, what the threshold is that like Daniel Jones, like he has to play. He needs these numbers to justify an extension. The problem is it could be fool's gold if he kicks the shit out of Jacksonville, kicks the shit out of Houston or Detroit and has great games, but then he goes and plays Baltimore and the Packers and they completely dominate him. I don't want to be caught in a position where he's destroyed a couple of bad teams and then he goes and plays good teams and he just can't live up to the hype or can't live up to the potential. And like you look at, and okay, so this is like the argument that I've been trying to justify. Like if you look at what Josh Allen did against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, that elite game he had where Gabe Davis caught 4 touchdown passes and he still lost that game. Daniel Jones will probably never play a game that good in his entire life, and Josh Allen lost that game. So what does that tell you? One, well, you need a really good defense in the NFL, but two, you need to be an unbelievable quarterback in this day and age to win a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford is a great quarterback. That defense is also great. Had great playmakers and great coaching. Everything about that team was just perfect. But like you having a great quarterback masks a lot of deficiencies. And Daniel Jones is far from that at this point in time. We need to see him beat some good opponents. And the Giants do have some tough opponents on this schedule. So I really want to see him play up to them and not play down. That's kind of what I'm trying to say here. But the next team on the list, a much easier squad, September 18th, the Carolina Panthers, 1 p.m. Fox at home. That's the home opener against the Panthers. The Giants beat the Panthers pretty handily last year. I think they kept them to like 3 points. They're still seemingly rolling with Sam Darnold. So I'm going to say the Giants win this game. They're very aggressive. They put Sam Darnold under a lot of pressure. He throws a couple interceptions, and the Giants walk away with a W in this game. I think that they have probably one of those resurging games where we're like, oh crap, like this is a different team. I think that's kind of the game this ends up being, but then they come crashing back down to earth shortly after. But I think this is a game that they do win.
Yeah, personally, I do think they win this game as well. I mean, the Panthers have some decent playmakers on offense, and they've got some decent players on their offensive line now. They drafted Ike Mekwonu. They still need to improve the interior of their offensive line, but it really all comes down to quarterback play at the end of the day. That's how it is for every single team. That's kind of the argument that you just made when you had your Daniel Jones discussion. So quarterbacks and Sam Darnold, it seems like he's going to be the starter. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Giants over the Panthers.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I wish I could take the Giants for every game, maybe one day. So week 3, now we have our probably most exciting game of the season at home, Monday Night Football. This is our only Monday night game, our only Sunday night game. I don't even know if we have a Sunday night game this year, which is kind of disappointing. But Dallas Cowboys, September 26th on ESPN, 8:15 p.m., Monday Night Football. That's going to be a fun game. I'm really excited about this game. Dallas, Micah Parsons versus Evan Neal or Andrew Thomas. Those are 2 fun battles that we're going to be able to watch. I think they still have Randy Gregory. They still got DeMarcus Lawrence, I believe. So he's still on the team, right? DeMarcus Lawrence? Or did he? Okay, I wasn't sure because he was all upset about his contract. And somebody was taking shots at Randy Gregory. Was taking shots at Jerry Jones, saying he deserved more. Either way, when you're looking at the Giants, their offensive line, it's going to be really fun to watch those 2 go at it. Dallas, seemingly, their offensive line got a little bit worse this offseason. I think Connor Williams is gone. They lost a couple of players. So we'll see what happens there. But the Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari in the prime time. It's going to be freaking awesome to watch that game. I am super hyped. But I can't say the Giants are going to lose this game because everyone would kill me. So I'm going to say the Giants win this game against Dallas. And hope is restored for a little bit. Hope is restored. But things come crashing back down to earth a couple weeks later. And I'll tell you why in a second. What do you think about Giants versus Dallas Monday Night Football week 3?
I think Dallas is going to win. I think they're the better football team. Of course, there's a long time between now and then, all the way until September. But personally, I think that the Dallas Cowboys are the better football team. And I think by week 3, I think it is. By week 3, they still will be the better football team in my eyes. I mean, their offensive line is better. Their quarterback is better. Their receivers are better. Running back is arguably better as well. Defensive line is more established. Their defensive coach as well is more established. I mean, Wink Martindale is excellent. And don't get me wrong, I really like Wink Martindale. But, I mean, the things that they did defensively last year under Dan Quinn were just truly special. The way that he developed Michael Parsons as well. So I'm going to take Dallas on that one. Maybe on the Thanksgiving one, I'll be a little more cheerful because it's the holiday. So maybe I'll take them to win that one. But for this matchup, I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to determine this stuff this early out, but I'm going to go with Dallas. I'm going to have the Giants at 1-2 after 3 weeks.
Okay, so I have them at 2-1. You have them at 1-2. Next week, Bears. We get to see what Justin Fields becomes. Giants 11th overall pick from 2021. We got Evan Neal with the 7th overall pick, courtesy of Chicago. So we get to see Evan Neal, get to see Justin Fields, see who kind of wins this battle. of the draft picks. October 2nd, 1 p.m. game on Fox, week 4. I think that the Bears have a better defense at this point in time based on just personnel. Offensively, it entirely depends on Justin Fields. He did not look good last year. He did not look good throwing the football. He turned it over a whole bunch. But I think he takes a step forward this year. I think he's going to look a little bit better. And with that being the case, this is a tough one, man. Bears, like, they're not a good team, but neither are the Giants. And I want to be realistic. So I think they're going to lose this game against the Bears. It is a home game, but I think they lose this game against the Bears and they go to 2-2, kind of come crashing back down a little bit from the Dallas game. What do you think?
I'm going to take the Giants on this one, actually. I kind of like what the Giants are rolling with. I think Justin Fields will long-term be a good quarterback, but unfortunately, I think it's going to take him a little bit more time. Last year was kind of a wash for him. He had really bad coaching. This year, new coaching staff. So is he actually going to take that jump that early in the season with a new coaching staff? Maybe not. And, that's probably an argument you could also make for Daniel Jones. But I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. But when you take a look at what the Giants did this offseason versus what the Bears did this offseason, I think that the Giants improved more than the Bears did. So for that reason, I think that they're going to come out on top of this one.
Okay, so you got, now we're so I guess 2-2. We're both 2-2, a little bit different. But on to the next one, we got the Packers in London at 9:30 a.m. on NFL Network, October 9th. Packers in London. I think this team is just a little bit too young to win this game. The jet lag and everything. Aaron Rodgers, he has the experience traveling. I don't think that the Giants can pull this one out. But I will say this. I want Daniel Jones to play well against good teams. That is what I want. I want Daniel Jones to play well against good teams and make this decision harder for us. You know what I mean? Like, if we're going to roll with him and the Giants are really, really, sure about giving him this year to show that growth and development, make it hard for us, man. Like, I really want him to pan out. Like, I want the guy to succeed. But if if he's gonna succeed, he's got to beat teams like the Packers, or at least perform really well. If they're gonna lose, let it be the defense's fault. They're young, inexperienced. They have a new head. They have a new coordinator. A lot of rookies on the side of the ball. Secondary is definitely a question mark. Let the defense be the fault. Daniel Jones, I just don't want him to make any big problems and fumble the ball in the fourth quarter, turn the ball over, immaturely, whatever it might be. So hopefully Daniel Jones kicks some ass against the Packers. I do have the Giants losing this game defensively mostly, but I would like to see DJ kind of stand up and have a great game in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Giants losing this one. I think the Packers are just the better team. Again, reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers back-to-back. So it's kind of like when you're making a schedule prediction this early out into the offseason, this far away from the regular season, you kind of just have to go with the more established players and the more established team, and the Packers are absolutely that. So I'm going to take them to win.
Yep, simple enough. So on to the next one. We got week 6 against the Baltimore Ravens. The schedule, couple games there, Cowboys, Bears, Packers, Ravens. That's probably the toughest part of the schedule up to this point, and maybe honestly the whole thing. So Ravens, 1 p.m., October 16th on CBS. Ravens, Wink Martindale's return game. We'll see kind of how this plays out, but this is another home game. They actually have 4 home games in a row. Cowboys, Bears, Packers is in London. So 3 out of the 4 are home games. Ravens, obviously stopping Lamar Jackson is tough. He knows what Wink Martindale likes to bring. He knows they're an aggressive style defense. But if you look at what the Miami Dolphins did to Lamar Jackson, they play a very similar style to Wink Martindale. A lot of cover one, a lot of blitzing, and they really took Lamar out of the game. Like they stopped him from running the football. If you can stop Lamar from running the football and make him beat you with his arm, you have a lot better chance of winning. The problem is if he throws it downfield, they did get rid of Brown, Marquise Brown. So like he's not there anymore. And, that's definitely their speedster. So, we'll kind of see they have Rashad Bateman coming off kind of a slow rookie season. I think he was injured for a good portion of it. But Anthony, I think that the Giants lose this one just because I don't think they're ready to stop Lamar Jackson just yet. I think that defensively the Ravens are a little bit stronger, but I think that the Giants put up a good fight at home. And I think that they leave it competitive. They leave this game competitive, but they don't walk away with a win, which is being competitive is a lot better than what we've been able to say in the last couple of years, with Joe Judge. So I'm happy to say that like the Giants look like they're making progress.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens on this one as well, but I don't think they're going to get absolutely demoralized like they did, and the Giants are going to get absolutely demoralized like they did the last time they played the Ravens. I mean, that was just an atrocity. Nobody wants to watch that again, but I do think that the Giants will be a little bit more competitive in this one, but ultimately I am going to take the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way it goes. So week 7, October 23rd, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1 p.m. This is probably the Giants' easiest game of the season, unless Trevor Lawrence just absolutely goes crazy. They signed Christian Kirk. We get to reunite with Evan Ingram. Hopefully he'll drop a pass. That will be hilarious. This is definitely a winnable game for the Giants, coming off a couple of tough ones against the Packers and Baltimore. They are going to have to travel to Jacksonville, I believe. So get a little sun in Florida, not too bad. 1 p.m. game. I think the Giants walk away with a win here. I think they really flustered Trevor Lawrence. They put him under a lot of pressure. I think Kayvon Thibodeau has a big game in this one. I think he has 3 sacks in this game. Definitely just taking arbitrary statistics at this point. But I think Kayvon Thibodeau, this is one of those games where this is where the rookies shine and these, kind of questionable squads. And I think he stands out. I think their offensive line's not terrible. They have some decent players there, but I think Thibodeau ends up having a good game, standing out in Florida, and, puts himself on the map in this one. I would love to see him get some sacks against, or at least have a good game against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. That would be awesome. He says he wants to come out firing in the fourth quarter and really in crunch time, get it done. So hopefully he can live up to that. But I think the Jaguars game is a good opportunity for him to really just have a good altogether, well-rounded football game, and really put a good performance on tape. So Anthony, what are you thinking about the Jaguars?
I think the Giants are going to win this game, but don't sleep too hard on the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence in his second season, new coaching staff, a lot of improvements to that roster. They could be a lot better than expected, honestly. But I do think that the Giants are going to win this one. I think that the Giants are the better team right now. I think that I'm a little more confident in Brian Dable and his coaching staff as well. And you know what? It might be a little bit hard fought, honestly. It might be a lot closer than people are going to look at this. A lot of Giants fans, biased Giants fans, are going to look at this and be like, oh, this is our blowout game. Maybe not, because, again, Trevor Lawrence in his second season, new coaching staff, more weapons. This could be a close game, but I am going to take the Giants, of course, like pretty much everybody else probably will at this point. And, of course, as you mentioned, that's in Jacksonville. That's going to be an hour away from my college, so maybe I'll have to go take the trip, meet some fans, and go.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jacksonville beat the Bills last year, so you can never really rule them out entirely. There are just arbitrary games where bad teams beat good teams. But the Giants, I would not categorize them as a good team at even close just yet. We're far away from being a good team. So I think this is definitely going to be an interesting matchup. But I think the Giants do walk away with a win in this one. Next, week 8, we have Seattle at 4:25 p.m. Obviously, they don't have Russell Wilson anymore. They do have Drew Lock. I think the Giants win this game. It's at Seattle, so they do have that advantage. But I mean, Drew Lock, there's no way, right? I mean, Drew Lock is not a good quarterback. The dude overthrows passes. He has a terrible accuracy. I think the Giants win this one. They just put pressure on him. He turns the ball over a couple times, and they kind of enjoy this win. But what are you thinking about Seattle?
Yeah, unfortunately, Seattle has suffered a real fall from grace in recent years. They used to be one of the perennial best teams in the NFL. Injuries took its toll, coaching staff overturn, and obviously a loss of severe talent. So I think that they're honestly one of those teams that could end up with a top 5 pick next year. This is a game that I think the Giants should win. I'm going to pick them to win this one. Now, granted, there are still good players on the Seattle Seahawks, like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They just drafted Charles Cross. We all really liked him coming out of Mississippi State. But their offensive line as a whole is very poor, and their quarterback position is even worse. So when you take a look at that really bad offensive line versus now the Giants with Leonard Williams, with Kayvon Thibodeau, with Azeez Ojulari hopefully developing, I think this is a game that the Giants can win through the trenches because they've got a better defensive line and a better offensive line than the Seahawks do. So when you take a look at that, and especially with Drew Lock throwing the football, you mentioned that he overthrows a lot of people. He's not the most accurate. This is a game that I think the Giants will win.
Agreed. Yeah. As you can see so far, this schedule is damn light. We're talking about teams that barely have quarterbacks at this point in time. And if Seattle wasn't good enough, week 9 bye, and then you go to Texans where they have Jalen Mills. So Jalen Mills, who knows? He showed some flash last year. He definitely had some better performances than Daniel Jones did as a 3rd round pick at that. So, 1 p.m. game, CBS, November 13th, week 10, Texans. I actually think the Texans are not a bad team. I think that they had some pretty good offensive performances last year. I think that the Giants get a nice little wake-up call. They beat Jacksonville. They beat Seattle, but I think they lose to Houston here. I think that Houston actually has some every now and then has explosive games offensively, and I think Brandon Cooks has a good one because he's fast and, the Giants are playing a lot of cover one, coverage here, man coverage, and I think that he kind of toasts them on the back end a couple times. So I'm going to go with Texans over the Giants because I do think that we have to be somewhat realistic and not have the Giants winning every single game in their kind of rebuild year. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna take the Giants on this one. I'm not that crazy about the Houston Texans roster. I like Lovey Smith. I think that was a decent hiring as head coach. Maybe not the best, but it should be able to. He should be able to keep some consistency over with what they were doing last year. I think, and that's kind of what they want to do because last year I thought they had a real building year. Like their first season in that rebuild was kind of decent. Like it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. It was a rebuild year, and I feel like Lovey Smith is a proven, coach who's been a head coach in the past. He can kind of help this team stay on the proper trajectory. Not saying they're going to go way up, but they're going to stay on the right trajectory that they began on last year. Now with Davis Mills, the quarterback, I mean, he did have his good moments last year, but at the end of the day, he was a third-round pick. He struggled a lot. This is his second season. Will he take that leap? I don't know. I'm not too confident, but I think that when you take a look at their roster, offensive line is really bad. Their playmakers are also not very good. Their defense at large is poor. I think the Giants honestly have a really good chance of winning this game. I'm going to take the Giants in this one, but again, it could be closer than most people expect because there are some decent spots on the Houston Texans roster.
Yeah, like I think that there are going to be like the Giants do have to lose some of these games. Like they're not a good team. Like they're not going to beat every single bad team because they're also a bad team. So that's kind of like my realistic take. But I do think that the Houston Texans are absolutely a winnable game, no question about it. Moving on to the next one, Week 11, November 20th against the Lions at 1 p.m. I think the Giants do win this game. Honestly, the Lions might be a better team than the Texans next season. They do have Jared Goff, but they also have what's his name, St. Brown, who had an absolutely electrifying rookie season. They have some good running backs. Defense is definitely questionable. Jeff Okudah definitely hasn't lived up to the hype, but they got Sewell, locking down that left tackle spot. They have a good kind of foundation of young players. I love their coach. Dude is all balls to the wall. He's definitely a personality, but I think the players love him. He's definitely a likable dude if you're a player. So I think the Lions are probably a better team than the Houston Texans at this point in time, but I think the Giants do beat the Lions, simply because they're hosting them in New York. They do play the Texans at home as well, but I think they bounce back from a tough loss to the Texans. And they're like, yo, we can't lose against the Texans. And they come back and they beat the Lions at home. What are you thinking about the Lions?
I think this one's going to be a tough one for the Giants. The Lions have built together a pretty decent offense. They signed DJ Chark this offseason. They just drafted Jameson Williams. Jared Goff has some weapons to play with. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, as you mentioned, like Amon-Ra St. Brown was a player that I really loved coming out of the draft last year, and he had a great rookie season, proved me right. So thanks, Amon-Ra. But then you also take a look at their offensive line and what they're building there. They signed Frank Ragnow this offseason. That was a huge signing for them. Great center, established veteran, left tackle Taylor Decker, right tackle Penei Sewell. Their interior isn't even bad either. They've got a lot of talent on this offense. TJ Hawkinson as well as their tight end. We all know he is one of the best young tight ends in the league. And then, of course, they drafted Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side of the ball. They've got Jeff Okudah hopefully bouncing back from, not even playing last year and also the worst rookie season like ever for a cornerback the year before. But at large, that defense is missing a lot of talent. Their defense is very poor. You take a look at their roster, and they need some help defensively. That's probably going to be their focus this upcoming offseason, the Detroit Lions. I do think that they're a lot better this year than they were last year. And I do think this is a game that the Giants win because of the fact that the Detroit Lions defense is so poor. I think this is going to be a shootout. Both teams should be able to get a lot of points on the board, but I'm going to bank on Brian Dable putting up a masterclass offensive game plan on this one and taking advantage of a bad Detroit Lions defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do take advantage of the Lions, and hopefully Daniel Jones is able to string together a couple of great performances against bad teams because you got to be able to beat bad teams or at least have good offensive outings against most of them. But here's the next really exciting matchup for the Giants. Week 12, November 24th, Dallas, Thanksgiving, 4:25 p.m. Eating your turkey legs, getting your stuffing in, and then watching the Giants kick some Dallas ass. That would be a perfect Thanksgiving. We haven't seen the Giants play a Thanksgiving game in I don't even know how long. And beating Thanksgiving, a lot of people hate Thanksgiving food. I love Thanksgiving food. The only reason people don't like Thanksgiving food is because your turkeys are dry as hell. That's why you don't like Thanksgiving food. You got a nice moist turkey, pause. You're going to have a good Thanksgiving. And then add in a Giants win over Dallas. Doesn't get better than that. So I'm going to go with the Giants beating Dallas in this one because we don't get Thanksgiving days very often. We don't get these games, but this year we do. And I think that we finally walk away with a win. And against Dallas, man, that'll be the best Thanksgiving I had in years.
That would be the best Thanksgiving ever, to get all the great food that I get every year, because my family knows how to cook for sure. But I don't think that the Giants are going to win this game. I am going to take the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are the better team. In my dream world, the Giants do end up winning this game. I hope and pray that they do, because it would be, like I said, the best Thanksgiving ever if they did. But personally, again, taking a look at the teams, I do think Dallas is the better team. I put the Giants on quite a win streak here. Taking a look, I had them beating Jacksonville, Seattle, Houston, Detroit. I think the win streak comes to an end here. I'm not taking them 5 games in a row. Dallas is the better team, and I think that unfortunately they will beat us on Thanksgiving Day.
Man, if you can put Dak Prescott in his butt, Kayvon Thibodeau's going to have himself a day. He's going to get that turkey leg at the end of the game.
Yeah, pause.
Really? What did I say? What did I say this time?
Just push through.
Okay, I'll push through. I can't even, man. I can't even. I say too many things. Week 13, December 4th, we got the Washington Commanders at 1 p.m. at Fox. Carson Wentz is back. That dude does not want to leave. Carson Wentz is back in the NFC East again. I mean, the dude just wants more kick-ass. The dude just wants more kick-ass. Going to the Commanders now. Dude is useless. Like, they got to move on. And the Giants, I think, are going to win this game against Washington. I think that they have had good luck against Washington. I think that you put Carson Wentz under pressure, make him throw the ball prematurely, and you're going to force him to make mistakes. He does not have Jonathan Taylor carrying the load on offense anymore. Does not have Jonathan Taylor. And that was the entire Colts offense, basically. So I think the Giants win this game. They have a good defense, good secondary, good defensive line. Had a couple of bad games last year. Their secondary actually did not play that great, but I think they have a much better season in 2022 defensively. So this is a game where I want to see Daniel Jones step up and really lead the offense and take charge. You're heading towards you're in the back half of the season at this point. He needs to be in form. He needs to be, looking sharp. And he understands the scheme, understands the play calling at this point in the verbiage. This is where we want to see Daniel Jones really take over and make a statement in terms of his future. So I do have the Giants winning this game. What do you think?
I'm going to take Washington, unfortunately. Again, you're going with the more established teams in my eyes. When you're making schedule predictions this far out, I mean, the schedule just got released today, and it's only May. We've still got 3 to 4 months before we see our teams hit the field. And I think that Washington just has the more established roster. They've got the better offensive line by far. Their offensive line is almost excellent, you could say. Their receivers are pretty decent as well. Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. Defensive line is phenomenal. It has been for years. They've got a good cornerback out there with Fuller. They've got a good team on this roster. And I think that, when you take a look at where the Giants are in my schedule prediction so far, they're 6-5 going into this game. I think this is a game that they probably lose. They're still competitive at 6-6. They're 500. They're right there. But the Washington Commanders are actually the better football team in my eyes right now. But I might just take the Giants on the next matchup, because I do think that the Giants are going to be able to surprise some of their division rivals with some decent games now that they have a pretty competent coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I don't trust Carson Wentz at all. I think he's going to lose that game he's going to lose a lot of games for Washington ultimately. They're waiting patiently to find that quarterback. Maybe they're going to draft one or trade up in 2022 or 2023 NFL draft, which makes a lot of sense. But I do not think Carson Wentz is the answer long-term whatsoever. I do have the Giants winning that game now. Week 14, December 11th against the Eagles at 1 p.m. I think that the Giants lose this game, unfortunately. I think they're going to split the series with the Eagles this upcoming season. This point in the year, Jalen Hurts is playing well. They have some good playmakers. It's going to be really, really, really difficult for them to win. And they're hosting the Eagles in this one, so better opportunity. Just being in the home field advantage. But the Eagles just happen to play up to the Giants like every single time. Last year, I think we ended up winning one of those games at the end of the year. Against the Eagles, but ultimately Eagles, they're really tough. And I think that we're going to split the series with them. So I think that, usually you'd have them winning the home game, but I think the Giants will lose the first game against the Eagles here. Now, interestingly about this schedule, there are 4 consecutive games against NFC East opponents. So if the Giants win a lot of games in the first half of the year up to week 12, and they're like, we need to make a strong push, NFC East is wide open for grabs, up for grabs. These 4 consecutive NFC East games are the most important games of the season. If the Giants can win 3 out of 4 of these or even split the series, they'll have a much better shot at maybe squeaking into the playoffs in a wild card round, or even, taking the NFC East. Obviously, the Giants have a lot to do before we can discuss potential playoff berths, but those 4 games right there are probably the most important of the schedule if the Giants do happen to luck into an opportunity to push for a playoff spot. But what do you think about Week 14 against the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the Giants on this one because I think they're going to split the series with the Eagles. And if they're going to do it, they're going to do it in their home game. They're not going to go to the Lincoln win. I mean, the Giants just rarely ever win on the road versus Philadelphia. The only memorable win that I can remember, like real memorable one, winning on the road versus Philadelphia was back in 2011-12 season when Victor Cruz had his breakout game. Like, it's been that long. I mean, they just have not been winning in Philadelphia for a very long time, unfortunately. So if they're going to win, they're going to win it at home in my eyes, and I'm going to take them winning this one. Philadelphia is a decent team. They made some improvements. They got A.J. Brown. If Jalen Hurts can take a step forward, they could be a little bit scary, but I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts believer. I think that he's got a lot of field vision problems. He's got a strong arm, and he has his moments where he looks like a very good quarterback. I'll admit that, but he also has very inconsistent moments where he throws bad picks and he's really wild and sporadic. So, maybe another year under his belt, maybe he'll be better. But personally, I'm going to go with the Giants on this one at home versus Philadelphia.
Okay, fair enough. So now we have the Washington football team, Week 15, December 17th to 18th. Washington again. We're at Washington this time. I think we lose this one at Washington, so I'll kind of reverse the trend here, Anthony. I think the Giants win Washington at home, they lose away. Carson Wentz has one of those rare, like wildly good games that he has every now and then. But what do you think about this one against Washington Week 15?
Yeah, I had Washington winning the last one. I'm having the Giants win this one. I think that the
Okay, so going
Giants
back and
usually
forth.
play up to the Washington Commanders or the Washington football team or whatever they were in the past. Daniel Jones has always played up to them when he's on the road in Washington for some reason. I think it's a very weird phenomenon, but it's very interesting. It's very exciting for the Giants. So I do think this is a game that the Giants can and will win.
All right, fair enough. So on to the next one. We have the Minnesota Vikings Week 16, December 24th, 1 p.m. on Fox. Minnesota, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins, Andre Patterson. We stole him as our defensive line coach from Minnesota, one of the best in the league at that specific position coach. So I think this is a tough one. I think that the Giants lose against Washington the week before. At Washington, they come and they beat Minnesota in Minnesota. But it's going to come down to the run game, the run stopping game. They got to stop Dalvin Cook. Minnesota, obviously, they don't have the best receiving core. But I will say, stopping Dalvin Cook is essential. And the Giants, Wink Martindale's system heavily relies on run stopping up front. I think Dexter Lawrence has a bounce back season, and he makes a big impact stopping Dalvin in this game. And I think Kayvon Thibodeau shows off that he's a good run defender. He can seal the edge on the outside, which is essential. So, Anthony, what are you thinking about the Minnesota?
Unfortunately, on our Christmas Eve game, I'm going to think that Minnesota wins that one. I do think they're the better football team, the more established football team. Now, I understand they've got their problems now, and they're kind of like falling off really hard. Defense is not what it used to be. A lot of question marks surrounding Kirk Cousins and everybody else on that roster, really, and on that coaching staff. But, going forward, I think that the Giants, I have them pretty favorable on the schedule right here. Going into this game, I have them 8-6. I don't even know if I realistically see the Giants winning 8 games. Just going one by one on the schedule, taking a look at it, it is very easy. So I could see them winning these 8 games. But towards the end of the season here now, this Christmas Eve game versus the Vikings, I just think that the Vikings are the better team. I think they will be more competitive going forward. And, long term going forward, I think the Giants will be the more competitive football team in a couple of years. But right now, the Vikings are the more competitive team. So I'm going to pick them to win this game.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, so on to the next one. We got 2 games left. January 1st, Week 17, Indianapolis Colts. Now they have who do they have as a quarterback? They got why is he slipping my mind? What's his name, Anthony? Who went to the Colts? They have Matt Ryan. They got Matt Ryan now. So the Colts got Matt Ryan. That's a big deal for them. Much better, much better than Carson Wentz. They got Jonathan Taylor still. This is a tough team. Low key, they could be Super Bowl contenders this year. I don't think they're there just yet, but I think Matt Ryan, he definitely pushes them over the edge much better than Carson Wentz as a consistent quarterback. Comes down to their offensive line, which last year they had so many injuries and still managed to kick some serious ass on offense. So I think the Indianapolis Colts kind of wipe the Giants in week 17 here, just because they're kind of hitting a high, and Matt Ryan's gotten a hold of the offense at this point, and they're looking pretty sharp. And Jonathan Taylor, the guy is just unstoppable. And you got Quentin Nelson up there. There's no way you're stopping him. So we do have Mark Lewinsky though, so he's still one of their offensive linemen, Anthony. But what do you think about this Colts game? I think the Giants can't manage to pull this one off.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Colts on this one. Once again, the Indianapolis Colts are a team that are competitive, competing for the playoffs every single year. I think they'll be competing at the end of the season as well, and this is an end-of-season matchup. I think the Colts are going to pull this one out, and unfortunately, I think that puts the Giants at 500, 8-8 on my prediction. So going into the final game of the season at 500, I mean, that's honestly way better than the Giants have been in years, so I can't really complain too much about that.
Yeah, not at all. So here we go. Week 18, January 7th or 8th at Philadelphia. So we're at Philadelphia in this game. This is where I think the Giants end up losing this one. Anthony, I have this one split. So he had them winning before. I had them. Sorry. Did I have them winning before? Or did you have them winning before?
I think I had them winning before because I'm definitely
I had
not
them
picking
losing.
them in this one.
I had them losing before. I have them winning at Lincoln and really ending the season on a strong note, and everybody being like, okay, finally some good progress. Daniel Jones, this is his exit game. Like, most likely, this is Daniel Jones's exit game. He's got one last chance to show what he's got for somebody. I think he goes out and has the best game of the season and just tries his hardest to make things happen. This is it for him. He's got to execute. This is his last chance if they don't make the playoffs, which is very unlikely. So I think that they go into the Lincoln, they win, and everyone's like, hold up, DJ can do that? And then we have a really tough decision to make, and we all get really pissed off on social media for 2 months. So that's what I think happens ultimately, Anthony. But you have the Eagles losing, or rather the Giants losing at the Lincoln against Philadelphia, which is probably the more realistic decision of the bunch. But that's basically the entire schedule, guys. I'll list it off one more time. We have Tennessee, Panthers, Cowboys, Bears, Packers at London, Ravens, Jacksonville, Seattle, bye week, Texans, Lions, Dallas again, Commanders, Eagles, Washington Commanders. Screw the Commanders. Why? That's such a terrible name. Minnesota, Colts, and then Philadelphia. We have a 4-game streak of NFC East opponents in the second half of the season. Definitely tough. We also have a 4-game streak against some of the worst teams in football. So by the winning percentage of last year, the Giants have arguably the weakest schedule in the league, but teams always get better. Some teams get worse. We'll see kind of how that unfolds going forward. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, taking a look at the Giants schedule this year, kind of going through each individual game, seeing who we think would, they're going to win or they're going to lose against. Make sure to like and subscribe below. As always, my friends, we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.